Hello and welcome to In Service to Transformation with me, your host, Claire Darnell. I'm joined this week by Kalie Jade. Kalie is a psychic sound therapist, well-being practitioner, and practitioner of many modalities, many of which we'll touch on and unpack, I'm hoping, in this episode. And she also is a retreat organizer and facilitator. So I met Kalie recently at a wonderful festival. And she was really courageous, and she approached myself and my partner and said, I host these amazing retreats and you look like the sort of people that would like to be there. And I just thought, wow, that's really brave. And what I experienced in meeting Kalie in that moment was that she has so much passion for what she does. And unusually, I was just like, before we had a little chat about these retreats that I'll let Kalie tell you about. But unusually, I was just like, do you want to be a guest on my podcast? Because I could just see this fire in Kalie's belly. And I just thought she's really passionate about what she does and really represents what it is to be in service to transformation. So here we are having a chat. We don't know each other particularly well, but I'm looking forward to getting to know Kalie more as we move through this episode. So without further ado, hello, Kalie, and welcome.
Thanks for having me. What an introduction.
All true, right?
Absolutely. I love the fire, the passion,
Yeah.
especially the word courageous, because actually that's something that I've been working with. Been doing a lot of affirmations to do with having courage. So it's really interesting that that came across when I came over to you.
Yeah, totally. And I think another thing stuck out for me because you said something about collaboration, and that word came up in our conversation, and that was my word of the year. And I thought that's so interesting. I think it's part of the reason I ended up doing this podcast was because it's like it's the perfect way to collaborate with other people, right, in the field. So yeah, there was just definitely some alignment there. And here you are, and I'm so happy to
Here
have
I am.
So I want to start at the beginning, I guess, if there ever is one, and explore a little bit more about your journey and how you, yeah, like was there like a big moment of, I need to search something different for myself, or were you a slow burner like many of us are? Where did you embark upon your journey of healing and transformation?
I think my story is a little bit similar to yours, whereby it was kind of just always on my path.
Mm,
I think, a lot of us grow up knowing that we feel a little bit different,
yeah.
and then we have to explore that. And for me, yes, it was at a young age. I mean, a very young age. It started when I saw the ghost of my granddad, before I could actually speak. So my mum definitely knew that I was a bit different, and she was kind of told this by mediums. And at the age of 17, we kind of went to explore that a little bit at my local spiritualist church.
Mhm.
And that was when I started to kind of work on my link to spirit and developing as a medium. And I think that journey has just been throughout my life. A lot of mediums will say that it's just a continuous journey. You're always a developing medium. So yeah, my journey definitely started with mediumship and psychic development. And yeah, I just continuously added more learning and courses. So there wasn't really, it wasn't just like this dramatic moment that I suddenly needed to go and explore something. I just always knew that that was within me. And I think that just kind of, yeah, unraveled during my lifetime.
Mm.
But one pivotal moment that I do remember was when I lived in Spain. So when I was in my early 20s, we moved to Spain as a family, and I went through a stage of feeling quite lost. I think this happens to a lot of people when you're seeking direction. I was kind of like living in the mountains. Um, I felt quite isolated, and I was in another country where it was difficult for me to get work and, find friends and all of these things. And I ended up finding Reiki, or they say that Reiki finds you.
Mm.
I didn't go searching for it like most things. I didn't go searching at all, actually. And my mum had always had psychic readings. She'd had Reiki treatments, and I didn't really know what it was. But I met this, funnily enough, it was actually a gay couple, because a lot of my work is with within the queer community. But I met this gay couple on the development, the urbanization that I was living on, and they were running Reiki trainings at a villa nearby. And I ended up just going and doing this Reiki course. I started off on the first day, I was actually quite depressed. Just thinking back, just I was wearing black, really kind of like hiding away. I think lost myself. And by the end of that weekend workshop, I remember I was wearing bright colours. So I remember very distinctively I had this bright orange hairband, and I'm wearing orange again now. This bright orange hairband, and just that transformation just within a weekend was quite powerful.
Yeah.
And so they say that Reiki finds you at the right moment, and it really was kind of pivotal for me, because it kind of just shook me out of that place, that dark place that I was in, where I was hiding. And it was Reiki 1 is very much about self-healing. So you don't go into that to heal other people, you go into that level to heal yourself. And then you sort of move to Reiki level 2, where you then start learning to work on other people. So yeah, that was definitely my pivotal moment, I think. Living in Spain, feeling quite lost, and then kind of finding myself again.
And I mean, even from the beginning, I'm making myself laugh here because I did recently do one of those roast my Instagrams, you know, via chat GPT, and it says,
Yep.
ooh, podcast host, how many times do you say, let's unpack that? But I'm about to say to you, could you unpack a little more the piece that you mentioned about, you know, your psychic ability, your intuition? Because I I don't know what your viewpoint is, but mine is that we are all inherently psychic, but we're conditioned out of having that ability. And would you be willing to just dive a little bit deeper into that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that is interesting, because that's something that I talk about as well. The fact in my workshops and at Queer Spirit, I
Mm.
actually said that sentence. I do believe that we are all born with these skills, but we're so far removed from, I think how life used to be in ancient times, where we were sort of kind of all, I believe, telepathic and natural healers. But we've got caught up in this fast-paced life where we feel that actually if we've got a problem, we have to go straight to the doctor. But actually we are our own doctors. And we can look within to heal. So we need to look sort of at our emotions and things that we're suppressing, rather than taking a pill to mask that.
Yeah.
So yes, I definitely feel that we all have these abilities and that we can tap into them. Um, and a lot of people, I say it in this way, some people will remember um, times when they've thought of a friend that's maybe feeling low, and then they've checked in with them, they give them a call, a family member, and it's like a gut instinct that kicks in
Yeah.
when you know that something's going to happen before it happens. Or people have dreams as well, sometimes they have premonitions and dreams. And I always talk about using your intuition like as a map, instead of using Google Maps when you're going. I used to do it a lot on job interviews, going via your gut instinct. Right, should I turn left or right? Okay, just using your sort of inner compass basically to navigate, rather than Google Maps. So yeah, we definitely all got it. We just need to learn
Amazing.
how to develop it, like anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I love that. I missed your workshop at Queer Spirit. That's annoying. But yeah, weird how we said the same thing. And yeah, and that they do come in so many different ways that I think people take it for granted and just think, oh, what a coincidence, or oh, I had a funny feeling, like clairsentience, for instance, is a huge one that I think as humans we really have so much capacity for. Um, but yeah, it's something I've been unpacking myself. And then once you start to unpack it, you realize, oh my goodness, what about all of the times when I was in my room and then I saw that person sit on the end of my bed, or, I had that experience with that individual in that place at that time. And there are so many indicators that are there, but we're just so shrouded in this reality, in this dimension, that we don't really give it the weight that it kind of deserves. And I think a lot of people are kind of scared by it because of the stories that are attached to, you know, horror stories and like ghost stories and all of these things. But
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I do actually love it when people are kind of like non-believers and they come to me for a psychic reading and you kind of like end up converting them. Because it's just wonderful. It's one of the most wonderful things to be able to link to spirit and give evidence and give memories. And it's really freaky actually because your door is actually opening behind you right now. I don't know if it's an animal or
my cat.
if it's spirit. Okay. Thanks for clarifying.
No, it wouldn't surprise me if my aunt shows up in a minute because she always turns up to these kinds of things. So yeah, just let me know if you see her.
Um, yeah, it's with so many interesting experiences, but orbs are another thing because that's
Mm,
something a lot of people have seen in photographs actually as well. You know, you can see
yeah.
orbs. I've got a couple of videos on my phone where I've got orbs flying around, and
Mm,
it's just such a lovely sign that you've got loved ones around you. And you
yeah.
just can't necessarily, maybe we block that, maybe because we can't see it sort of in the moment, but we can see it on the camera or, you know, afterwards. So, yeah, maybe we're also adding that barrier
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah, I love how you touched on the loved ones as well, and you made me think of my aunt because very often I do feel, for me, it was the death of a loved one that really made me realize, oh my goodness, like she's there. And other people I went to this day event once, and this woman who was hosting the event, her mother was in the kitchen, and I went into the kitchen to get a drink or something, and she said, "Oh, there's a woman with you," and immediately I was like, "Oh." Yeah, what does she look like? She said, oh, she's, you know, she's quite petite. She's got brown hair. And I said, oh, that's my Auntie Jean, yeah. And my Auntie Jean had started showing up to all of these yoga retreats, day retreats, all of these
Wow.
things that I do, but had never shown any interest in that really while she was living. But it seems that post, and it felt to me that because I had some profound experiences, which we won't have time to go into now, but it felt to me like she was saying, you are on the right pathway. Because obviously,
Absolutely.
when people leave this earthly plane, they know better, right?
Yeah.
They've
Yeah.
seen what it's all about, and it just felt like she was saying, carry on, continue. So yeah, really interesting.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Our loved ones, at the end of a reading, you often try to give a message. And often that message is about being on the right path, but they are quite drawn to all of these wonderful kind of things that we do
Mm,
in well-being and definitely if they weren't a believer in life, they will often come through and sort of
mm,
like show that maybe they were wrong. Um,
absolutely.
yeah, definitely.
Beautiful. So thank you for letting me take that little diversion into psychic abilities. I fascinated. Um, Reiki. So you were doing this Reiki, and obviously you said Reiki one is healing yourself, and what were you trying to heal, Kalie?
I think at that point, I felt very lost. But what's
Mm,
interesting is I think we have these kind of recurring situations in life when we feel lost.
mm,
So I know it's definitely happened to me a number of times in my life, but at that point I was sort of, as I said, living in the mountains.
yeah,
It was difficult for me to sort of get around and find work. So I think I'd lived in Spain for a few years at that point, and it was kind of like crunch time, decision time. Do I move back? And it was trying to find that direction. And I just actually was trying to find my way in life, you know, setting up a career, which I couldn't really get in Spain. Um, I couldn't, I was sort of developing in all of these healing modalities, but I wasn't there yet. And,
mm,
you know, it was sort of early stages. So I needed to come back and carve out a career. And I knew that I wanted to be a writer. And so I kind of tapped into that intuition and stuff. And then I moved back and I followed that path. So I
mm,
kind of trained as a journalist and then fell into a kind of like digital career, but always kept my spiritual side going alongside my sort of main career.
yeah,
So at that point, it was, yeah, mainly trying to find direction. Um, and it's just funny because I've definitely had those periods again in my life. I think it's every so often you get to a crossroads and
yeah,
it's like peeling off layers of an onion, isn't it?
totally.
Um, and you're, to use your word, unpacking. Yeah, just unpacking all of the think, different experiences that you've had in life. You're affected by relationships, friendships, rejection, work situations, all these things. So you're forever unpacking and peeling off those layers of the onion at different points.
Yeah, definitely. And revealing what's really needing to be looked at. Yeah, I agree. And it's very strange. It's also a term that I use quite a lot, peeling away the layers of the onion. So the Reiki, obviously, let's talk a little bit about Reiki for those that don't know what Reiki is. So
Yep.
would you like to explain? I'm not going to.
Yeah, sure. So Reiki is a very powerful form of healing. It sort of accelerates the natural healing process within the body and the mind. When we do a treatment, we will basically ask you to lay down on a massage bed. So it's very similar, except for there's no touch involved. We will play some lovely calming music, maybe put some incense on, guide you in with a little mini meditation. And during the treatment, you're just laying on the bed, closing your eyes, and people drift off. So they might go to sleep, they might sort of lay there kind of awake, feeling quite present. But what the practitioner is doing is they are using energy, connecting with energy and working with your chakras to release blockages. So the chakras are like a map to the areas that are blocked. And we will often start at the head and work our way down to the feet. Just trying to, clear anything that's become stored. And that can happen over many, many years. You know, you can sort of hold and suppress these emotions, and then that can sort of transform into illness over time. So we must always keep trying to clear and release things that we no longer need. I sort of feel like it's a really, really interesting experience as well, because I think practitioners all work differently, but with me, that psychic element definitely does come into it. So I'm not just there to relax someone. I do like to delve in on that deeper level and give some feedback at the end. You know, what was I drawn to, what areas, or sometimes I might pick up really interesting information. I think someone once came to me with back pain, and then I recognized that something had happened, you know, from childhood. Or sometimes I get drawn to things like having a miscarriage or an abortion, or all these things that can just get stuck in our aura. And you think that you might have moved on from that and done the work, but actually I still find it in the energy field. So it is really about clearing, or sometimes just bringing that to the surface so that it can be heard. So, but ultimately it's a very, very relaxing experience. So we are, yes, working on the natural ability to heal, and we are just like we don't say that we healed the person, we're just kind of like that go between. You know, I do believe that we're channeling something from spirit. Whatever you believe in, however you see it, it's we sort of work with loved ones or angels, or, you know, ascended masters, whatever you're tapping into. It is just a higher frequency, and we are just that sort of messenger for the healing to take place. So it can be very
Great.
transformative.
And it is, as you say, everything is energy, and we are, when you're practicing with Reiki, you're ultimately connecting with the energy of the being, right? And so you know, we can send Reiki to our meals before we eat them. We can send Reiki to our pets. And as you said, it is about working with the chakras specifically for Reiki because of its origins being in Japan, right? But ultimately, it's so aligned with so many other traditions, principles, practices, that it feels quite a universal, and it is the universal law, right, of, you know, Reiki. So I think it's such an interesting one because you can layer it with your other spiritual practices, and I think when you feel Reiki energy, or when you feel one of those shifts, it's so fascinating, whether you're hands-on working with somebody else. And I think we all have those moments, right? That heat that we feel from our hands.
Yes, I love the heat.
When we connect with somebody and we're like, oh, that feels like, what is that? So we all have the ability, I believe, to practice Reiki, but if we tap into it, and obviously when we're receiving it, it can be so important, as you say, to move those blocks through and allow them to rise to the surface so the individual can heal themselves, because
Yes.
nobody knows how to heal themselves better than you.
Yes.
You know the map to your body and how your body feels and how your psyche feels and what happened, and sometimes you just need a little bit of help to move it along. And I think that's what
Absolutely.
people like yourself do, right?
Yes, it is just a
Mm.
little bit of
Mm.
assistance.
Yeah, a
Definitely.
little bit of resistance,
Yeah.
exactly. And I love how you touched on the spiritual guides, because I would agree a lot of the time, if I'm facilitating, I often think, wow, where did that come from? And what I've learned is it's not really me at all. I've just become a channel or a vessel, a hollow kind of bone, as I would call it in more of my practices, where spirit or my ancestors or something is moving through, and then I'm having this ability to guide somebody in the way that they need to be guided. And very often there'll be this like, oh, do I have to say that thing? Really? That's what I'm going to say? Okay, let's go. And then, at the end, you're like, that was the thing that needed to be said. And me and my humanness can't always know that,
Oh,
so
that's so true. Yeah. Some of the things that I say during psychic readings, I honestly have no idea where the words come from. It's not something I would normally say. But you have to trust, it's really
yeah.
important to trust spirit. And
Mm.
okay, it might sound strange, but that's what you're getting. So your client will hopefully know what you're talking about. And sometimes it
Mm.
takes a while just to make sense of it, but you get there in the end.
Yeah, totally. Beautiful. So
Mm.
what happened after? Because I think we had a little chat before we got going, and I said,
Hmm.
oh, what things did you try? And then you discovered that you were going to go and train in those things, but you actually did all of the trainings. So what was your next sort of point of focus? What caught your attention next after
So I
Reiki?
think, yeah, it was a really sort of natural progression. So I did my Reiki level 1 in Spain and then did Reiki level 2 there. And I think then moved back to the UK, and I I sort of became self-employed for a while, fully self-employed for about 7 years.
In
Um,
journalism or in
no, so we're jumping ahead a little bit here.
Mm.
We're jumping ahead. So I had my sort of digital career, but
Mm.
I got to a point. Actually, this is probably another pivotal point for me was then when
Yeah.
I became unwell. So
Mm.
next big part of my journey was I had fibromyalgia,
Mm.
which I think a lot of people have heard of now.
Yes.
Sort of maybe 2013, around that time, I was really, really tired, lacking energy, yeah, just so fatigued, and trying to make sense of that. And I think it does happen to a lot of spiritual people because you're kind of like taking on a lot of other people's
Mm.
baggage as well. But yeah, I was in a lot of pain. Sometimes I couldn't walk. It was just quite unbearable at times. It was
Mm.
horrible. Um, but this was a really, really big part of my journey, was trying to heal from fibromyalgia. And so at this point, I stopped working in offices, and it really interestingly, it seemed like the offices were actually making me sick because I developed something called sick building syndrome. I don't know if you've
Oh,
heard
I
of that,
have
but
heard of this and I know it well. Mm.
right.
Yeah.
So it was literally like my body was rejecting being in an office environment, and it probably catapulted me into starting a business and becoming self-employed, which was really
Mm.
scary. But I needed to heal. My partner at the time was amazing because they allowed me to go self-employed, and they kind of supported me during that time. So they said, look, take a year, just build up your business. And that's what I did. So I originally started with doing more trainings. I think so there's a bit of a gap between getting sick and starting the business, but I was very, very unwell with fibromyalgia, and that was just a journey in itself. And then a number of years later, started building my business, and I started training in sound therapy. So I've
Mm.
done about 3 different courses, which I think is really important, which we'll probably stress again at the end, if anyone's looking to go on that journey. But I did my sort of Gong Master course and my sound therapy training, where I worked with lots of different instruments. I took my meditation qualification.
Mm.
I think it's important, to just have qualifications behind you.
Mm.
People need to trust, they're in safe hands. I did my crystal healing qualification at that point as well. Um, I touched on some shamanic training, but I didn't go too far down that path.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah, this was when I started adding a lot more strings to my bow. And then I just brought all of that together and started running classes, workshops, and then retreats, which has been a really,
Mm.
really exciting journey.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing. I'd really love to talk a little bit more about well, you sort of touched on the sick building syndrome, and I'm sure a lot of people can probably identify with this, especially because I think in the time that shall not be spoken, but you know, in lockdown,
Yes, in that time.
a lot of us had the opportunity to not be working in an office, right?
Mm,
And then obviously the call to action was like everyone back. No, not for everybody actually, but for a lot of people it was back into the office. And I'm sure people really felt the difference of what it is to go into a LED lit, super air conditioned, you know, 5G'd up environment full of control mechanisms, structures, electricity, and things that make our bodies, our human bodies, sick. So yeah, I'm just quite curious. How did that show up for you? Like how did you find out, oh, I have this thing? Like how did you join the dots?
with sick building syndrome.
Yeah.
So I was just so unwell, to be honest. It was the craziest experience.
Mm.
I was working in this council building and it was just glass everywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, it didn't feel great, but there was a lot of other aspects to it, like aircon, just continuous aircon and artificial lighting. And I wasn't high up in this building, but maybe 4 floors up or something. But I got in this lift and it was that one of those kind of like lifts that go kind of quite quickly.
Mhm.
And I was just feeling really dizzy. That was the main symptom, was just really bad dizziness. And to the point where I was sitting at my desk and I was holding onto my desk because I literally felt like I was in the Matrix or something. Not that I've actually seen that film, but I was just kind of like yeah, felt as
Vertigo.
if I was, it was a bit like vertigo. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
just sort of like
Mm.
leaning like this, sort of vertically. Um and I just had to get out of the building. I remember feeling so sick, and one day I just got out of the building and I found a doctor's across the road, and they said it wasn't vertigo, and that was the strangest thing. I said, it's got to be because it's like being high up in the building, and I wasn't even near the edge. I could understand if I was going to the edge of the building, but I
Yeah.
wasn't. I was just in the middle at my desk. It was fine. I didn't feel particularly scared of the heights or anything.
Mm.
But the most interesting part of this experience was that I then tried all different ways to work in this building. I tried hot desking on the first floor, and I even had this dizziness on the first floor without going in the lift, without going up.
Yeah.
I had it on the first floor. And yeah, it was a really interesting experience. It made me ill for quite a long time, all around the same time as when I got the fibromyalgia. Um, but even I then left and I worked from home. I asked if I could work from home, and I still felt unwell with the laptop. So I think there is probably a bigger message going on there,
Yes.
about not working so much with computers at that point and
Mm.
pushing me to work with my gifts. But yeah, sixth building syndrome, a lot of people have actually heard of it, and I didn't know what it was. It was just somebody in that building told me about it. And so I
Mm.
looked it up and realized that's what I had. But then I started to be affected by glass anywhere after that, and sitting up, even on a high stool, I couldn't sit high up. So it was affecting me for quite a while. Dark rooms, or bright lights, lots of different
Mm.
lingering symptoms from that.
Anything that's not natural, really, isn't it? I guess.
Mm,
Right.
mm,
Mm.
mm.
Wonderful. That you were able to discover that. And then alongside your fibromyalgia, so these pieces that you were going away and learning, you started to feel yourself healing. And we spoke a little bit previously, and I'd love you to touch on it again, like for
Mm.
the listeners, around the power of the mind.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
these pieces that you've identified and how you didn't want to be a victim, you know, to this
Yeah.
illness.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, I don't mean this in a negative way at all, but I think a lot of people,
Mm.
once they become sick, they kind of feel that that's it forever. And I think for me, it was really important not to identify in that victim role and just
Mm.
always believe that I was going to get better. But I really was so unwell, I would be crying, a lot. And I just remember once laying on the sofa and just, not even being able to reach for a glass of water because, your skin is sore just laying on the sofa and everything is just so difficult. That feels like such a long time ago.
Yeah.
Um, but I can't say, like sometimes people say, but how did you heal from fibromyalgia? And I just can't say there was something that I did or a treatment that I had or a course of medicine. There was nothing like that. I think for me, it was the mindset, so important. And what I did was on the days when I was capable, I would go for a short walk. So it might be 10 minutes in the park, and I would build up to walking the whole lap of the park. And I just always kept doing what I could do.
Mm.
And then I got to the point where one day I ran 10K and I was just so proud of myself because I
Wow.
never thought I would ever do that. But the power of mind
Mm.
is amazing.
So incredible, isn't it?
Mm.
It makes me think of, I remember seeing a documentary ages ago called Heal, where Dr.
Oh,
Joe Dispenza speaks about the power of the mind, and he had this cycling accident.
I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, and he'd broken his spinal cord or a nerve within the spine. They said you're never going to walk again, and he started to study the spine, and he rebuilt this spinal network of nerves one by one in his head until it was like a jigsaw in his mind. And every time he would lose his place, he'd go back to the beginning, determined to rebuild this pathway. And well, he's fine now, right? He's walking about, he's fine, he's
Mm.
healed. And I do remember that being a bit of a, like that's how powerful the mind is. And yeah, I do believe, yeah, I would just say I'm aligned and have had serious illness, but there is, I was really fortunate. I did need medical intervention, but I do remember this like determination in me of I am
Yeah.
not going to die of sepsis. Like this
Yeah.
is not
Wow.
happening. This is not how I go. And this absolute moment of knowing that if I did go, actually I'd be quite happy with where I was at. Like there was
Wow.
almost like this peacefulness
Hmm.
alongside this determination. I can't explain it. Of okay, well, if this is the time to go, I accept it, but I'm not going. I ain't ready yet. So yeah, I really enjoyed listening to you share about that. So I'm quite excited as well to sort of talk a little bit about the spaces that kind of light you up now and what you're creating, because you've got so many skills and abilities and qualifications and things that you've acquired, right? But what
Oh,
lights you
thank you.
up? What makes you excited?
Oh, good question. I think I just love helping other people.
Mm,
I've done a lot over the last sort of maybe 10 years in the world of wellness.
mm,
One of my favorite things will always be doing mediumship readings with people because it's just a wonderful feeling when you bring through a loved one, you bring through their personality or some memories, and especially when you get the person that they want to connect with.
mm,
Um, but I think, yeah, something that I've focused more on in the last 3 years is
mm,
running retreats for
mm.
the queer community.
Brilliant.
So I have run retreats for all women, but in the last couple of years, I've really focused on supporting the community, and I think it's just a really powerful space. It's for women and it's gay women, and that obviously includes trans women and bisexual women.
Mm,
But it's a really powerful space. I remember the first retreat that I ran, it was just, yeah, another level of bringing people together.
mm,
And I just love doing opening circles where people share why they're here. And last year on my retreat, it was wonderful. It went on for quite a long time. Everybody was just, I couldn't believe how much actually everybody shared and
mm,
what they've been through. We're all going through so many different difficult life experiences, and for people to feel safe in that space is just beautiful, for them to share what they're going through and what they need to heal, and shed a few tears, and
mm.
to watch that transformation. And we keep using the word transformation, obviously,
Yeah.
for your podcast, that transformation just from a couple of days, from Friday to Sunday, and then starting with that opening circle, and then we have a group hug. We had a group hug at the end, and we connected everybody, And yeah, it's just really beautiful to watch everybody on that journey. So that really does light me up.
Yeah, that sounds beautiful. And I love that you've created, so this is one of these branches of this would be LezBe Mindful, right? This specific retreat space, gathering space
Yes,
for
yes. So LezBe Mindful, we
mm,
host luxury gay women's retreats, but they
mm,
are LGBTQ, so the whole queer female community,
mm,
and including non-binary people.
mm,
So we've been running for 3 years, and we have been organising luxury retreats in Norfolk.
yeah,
We now have a glamping weekend, which is really about immersing yourself in nature
mm,
and reconnecting. We have a stunning, stunning lake where you can go on a paddleboard or kayak. It really is the softest water.
mm,
Um, but what we love doing is cooking together and eating together and growing together.
mm,
So it's just connection from start to finish
mm,
and making friends. And the idea of these weekends, they're like wellness weekends where they're small and intimate. So it will never be a large festival where
mm,
you don't speak to, many other people, or have this sort of like clicky environment. It's all about real, pure connection,
mm.
and lasting friendships as well. So yeah, they are really powerful spaces. And we've literally just launched our first event abroad. So that's what I'm trying to spread the word about at the moment, which is very exciting. We've had such wonderful feedback. So LezBe Mindful in Malaga is happening in October.
Amazing. So if people are interested in, I mean, are you open to having chats with people if they're curious about these events? And
Absolutely. I think that's what kind of maybe sets me apart from other event organizers, where I just spend a lot of time on the phone talking people through and holding their hand, literally.
yeah.
Because I think that's probably why I get clients like this, that are drawn to my events, because I've been through all of this myself. I've
Mm.
had that journey of fear, and we didn't really go into that, but I've
Yeah.
had depression and anxiety, and I'm forever moving through that myself as well, just trying to overcome those obstacles. So I really, really feel passionate about trying to help people overcome fear and pushing themselves outside the comfort zone to do something that scares them, whether that's going on a trip as a solo or getting on a plane or whatever it is. We'll do a pre-meet, we'll organize ways of helping you, just making you feel comfortable. I'll talk to you on the phone, meet you at the airport, whatever it is that I need to do.
Mm. Yeah.
That's what it's all about for me.
Yeah, I love that. And we've kind of gone full circle because obviously I talked about one of the striking pieces when meeting you was your courage. And then ultimately, you said you're working with that this, at the moment or this year or have been.
Hmm.
And then ultimately here you are transforming that into medicine. And it's been medicine for yourself, and here you are transforming it into medicine for others, right? And inviting people to meet their edges, to just
Mm,
step beyond that comfort zone. And I think, well, for me personally, that my journey of my queerness, my, accepting my sexuality has been that it's been incremental steps over
mm,
that precipice of, oh, okay, this is an edge, and I don't really know this environment or what it is to be queer in this way, in this space. Let me step forward. But being what I love, the sound of with your events is to be immersed in, I'm guessing, a spectrum of women who, or LGBTQ, let's not gender define, a spectrum of humans who identify as, again, let's use the banner of queer, right? So who are probably at different stages of their journey, I would
oh,
imagine. So if you've got a
definitely.
diverse group there, who there's going to be somebody there who understands where you're at or has been there and is further along the road. And I think these
Hmm.
role models and these individuals who've walked that pathway are so valuable, right? Peer support and
Yeah, yeah, peer support, that's really important. And I mean, one experience I'd love to share is just that we had a trans lady come kind of, I'd say, at the beginning of that journey.
mm,
And I do get messages from people saying, "Are you trans inclusive?" And I want people to feel safe. So obviously I want that to be clear.
yeah,
But this lady had such a wonderful experience, and they were crying at the end and just sharing how accepted they felt,
yeah,
which was beautiful. But yeah, just going back to the support. Sorry, can you remind me what you just said?
I was just talking about peer support and,
Peer support.
you know, people who are further along the road and who kind of walk
That
up
was it.
and
Sorry. Yeah.
support you in
We,
your
sorry, that was we have people at all stages of the journey. That's what I wanted to clarify, was that we
yeah,
do get a lot of beginners. So I think you don't have to be a guru or, you know, an expert in meditation. Um, it's very much a welcoming space to anyone who's on that journey, whatever part of the journey you're on. You know, if you've never meditated before, don't worry, you can still come. You know, there's different elements to what we do, whether it's you like nature,
yeah,
or you know, you like being outdoors, you like paddleboarding, cold water swimming. That's a big part of what we do. Um, but you know, even in terms of the event abroad, even if you just want to go and relax by a pool and you just want to be supported in the community, you want to feel safe, you know, because travel is not easy for our community. So, you know, if you just want a gay holiday, you know, we've got a private villa where you're going to be completely safe, and you can just lay by the pool, and we've got some music in the evening, so then you can dance in the evening, because dance is healing as well. So
yeah,
yeah,
movement practices.
absolutely, just everything moves energy.
Yeah, energy, emotion, right? Emotions.
Yes,
All
yes.
that. Yeah. Beautiful. So people can find your retreat spaces. I would love to be able to direct people as well to your, you know, offerings, your links. I'll make sure everything's linked in the bio.
Thank you.
Before we wrap up, is there anything that you feel has been like a part of your journey that we haven't touched on that would be beneficial for us to unpack?
Good question. I think
It's a big
something
question, so I apologize for putting you on the spot.
no, it's okay. I think, you know, it's like your life is like a timeline, isn't it? And I think it's good to share your experiences because they can help other people, which is something I've always done quite openly. I think another just big part of my journey that has inspired me is losing my friend Aggie, which I know we talked about previously.
Yeah.
So she's been a big driving force to what I'm doing for the community, the LBT community. Um, so my friend Aggie passed in very tragic circumstances about 5 or 6 years ago now. And it was suicide, but it was complicated. So we won't go into that too much, but it was just such a special connection between me and her, because she actually came to one of my wellbeing days. So outside of LezBe Mindful, I also run a free support group called Spiritual Lesbians and Wellbeing. And
Wow.
that's been running for 9 years. So that's
Wow.
a free service that I offer. We have a Facebook group and we have a meetup page. And that can involve, just to explain, that can involve going for meals. We always do a Christmas meal every year. We sometimes travel further afield to events. We do sort of like local meetups in London. We do an annual picnic. So lots of things to get involved with in that group. But my friend Aggie, she came along to a wellbeing day a number of years ago, and I will always remember her. I did my opening circle, and we passed a little talking stick, which was a inflatable microphone around. And I asked everybody for a word. So I often do something fun at the beginning. I asked everybody for a word to describe themselves. And her word was nervous. And this is probably a really lovely way to sort of end our
Mm.
conversation as well. Her word was nervous. And I will just never forget Aggie. She had no confidence. She was really troubled. She'd had a lot of trauma. And from that day on, it was like a new beginning for her, because she came to this. It must have taken a lot for her to come to this wellbeing day. And obviously all non-for-profit, just to clarify.
Mm.
Um, And then she started coming to me for treatment. So we work with sound therapy, a bit of Reiki, but mainly sound therapy. And I still have her testimonial to this day. I had it on my homepage of my website, where she said she felt like she was flying from the sound sessions, which was beautiful description. But she was really finding a path of healing, because she suffered from clinical insomnia. So she was starting to sleep better and she started to feel more confident. But she supported me as well. It's a two-way street. And I think
Yeah.
we're all helping each other, even if we don't realize that. And she actually physically helped me when I started driving, when I was nervous about driving. And she helped me drive to to new venues with my sound baths right at the beginning when I was first self-employed. So it was a really lovely two-way connection there. But Aggie, she tragically passed on New Year's Day. So New Year's Day is always a sad day for me, but I go for a cold water dip on New Year's Day and try to do something really positive. But basically, she's been a driving force. So I sort of always mention her name at my retreats. I always want her to be remembered. And I want to do something in her memory, which is something that I've done is called Aggie's Fund. I've set up this fund. And whether I'm sort of, applying for funding or people donate through my retreats, I'm trying to provide luxury escapes for people that are in need. So the idea is that they get to come along to an event and they get a fully funded experience for someone who's in physical, mental, or emotional difficulty. And obviously that links with financial difficulty. So all of those things are connected. So, and we've been able to help some people. Last year, a lady managed to come along who was going through cancer. This year, I've managed to give a place to someone who has been going through a lot and grief, particularly. So, yeah, I'd love to remember Aggie, and yeah, just keep building that fund and helping people that need that break.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful, such a gift, right? And yeah, thank you so much for sharing a little piece about Aggie with us. And
Thank you.
yeah, what a beautiful way to end. I just love what you said as well about the reciprocal nature of what it is to work with somebody. I mean, what is it? Is it really even work? It's not, is it? To align with
No.
these people that end up, that find us, and then we kind of journey together, I guess would be a more appropriate way of looking at it. And then I think what's so misunderstood is how reciprocal that is and how two-way that process is. And I often learn so much when I'm facilitating a group of women from each of the women, and I'm like, oh, what a gift, we get to see ourselves reflected back in a way that we never would have without that encounter. And yeah, Aggie sounds like she was a really special human, so thank you for sharing
Yours,
with us.
yeah. Thank you.
I almost don't want to ask you the next couple of questions
I know we
around,
could just go on and
because
on,
like
couldn't
let's
we?
just just finish there. But I am curious because
Yeah,
I think
sure.
I mentioned before we sort of have two groups of listeners. We have those who are seeking healing themselves, and I'm sure people will have taken so much from what you've shared. But do you have a nugget that you would like to share with anybody who is, seeking some kind of healing or transformation, a word of advice, a suggestion, however you want to label it?
Yeah, I think the biggest nugget for me, I think, would be not letting your life be blocked by fear, because that is such a huge part of my journey, and I'm continuously pushing myself to do things that scare me. And this has been a number of years now, but especially ramping it up in the last few years, flying by myself has been has been a big challenge, driving to new places, because of the anxiety that I sort of have had. So I really think something that I would share is just not to let fear hold you back. There's that saying, isn't there? Feel the fear and do it anyway. What's the worst that could happen? Because actually the fear is worse. The thought of the fear that is created in your mind is worse than the actual experience, because it's never as bad as what you think it's going to be. So yeah, I would really encourage people to push themselves to try something new. Definitely.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
And for those who are sort of more in the facilitation, holding space arena, do you have any suggestions or nuggets for them?
I think the most important suggestion I would say here is that I think it's just so important to learn your craft. I think since the times there's been an explosion of practitioners in the wellness arena, and I think it's quite clear that not everybody has done the work, and that is just not the training, that's the self-work. So it's really important to put yourself through it in a way. I mean, there's lots of different practices. There's some more extreme than others.
Yeah.
But it really is important to have a self practice. So I think you should have a morning routine, really important, or a bedtime routine, or both if you can. But you should be pushing yourself, and you should be learning as much as possible. And you really need to get the qualifications. And
Mm.
I'm not talking the 1 day trainings, I'm talking the 1 year trainings of, really learning your craft, because there is a responsibility when you become a practitioner or a leader, a host, whatever it is that you're doing. If you're hosting a class, a workshop, there's a responsibility. And I've seen it when I've been to a sound bath where, people were covering their ears. I had to walk out, because people haven't learned the craft properly. They think banging a gong is as a yogi,
Mm.
qualified yoga teacher, they can just pick up a sound bowl or a gong, and actually it doesn't work that way. There's a responsibility, and you can actually bring on trauma and
Yeah.
bring on anxiety, through sound particularly.
Mm.
So yes, I would really, really strongly emphasize that you need to learn your craft and take it very seriously.
Mm.
Remember that your energy is everything, as we said, so you don't want to pass your energy on to somebody else in a negative way. So you want to keep yourself in a really good space. So always going for your own healings, your own treatments, and doing things that work on yourself.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and it's about embodiment, right? How
Mhm.
can you be
Yeah,
teaching the thing if you are not being the thing? How are you
practice what you preach. Yeah.
embodying the thing? Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful.
Definitely.
Thank you so, so much, Kalie. It's been so lovely to chat with
Oh,
you.
it's
Do you
been
feel
amazing.
complete?
Oh, I feel alive.
Ah, I love it.
It's funny, I actually put on Facebook, on my personal profile this week, what makes you feel alive? And this has really made me feel alive, being,
Mm,
a guest back on a podcast. It's been a little while. So thank you
beautiful.
so much for this.
It's such a powerful message, and yeah, such a huge journey, and like trying to
Mm,
condense it into an hour's conversation has been a
yep.
challenge, but I think we did it. We touched
So much to
we,
say.
we touched on all the parts, and I'm really grateful to you. So yeah, to the
Good.
listeners, if you want to connect with Kalie, I'll make sure that her contact details are available for you. Do reach out to her, do look into her retreat spaces, her healing spaces. They're fantastic. And I no doubt will encounter you there at one of them in the future. I'm really hoping,
Absolutely.
yeah, when the dates align. But yeah, thank you so much, Kalie. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
You're welcome.